All right. Once again, back in the can for another edition of Lunatic Fringe Into the Void. The magic of the internet serves me well on this show because once again, on the other end of the line, I've got somebody else cool to talk about some serious stuff here, serious and fun stuff. So tell me, who's for you and what do you do?
I'm Brian Germain. And, well, among other things, I jump out of airplanes.
Brian Germain. I mean, that's a voice and a name that's been around skydiving for a few years now. One or two. 34 years of jumping, huh?
34, yep, exactly. April
Wow.
13th is my anniversary coming up.
How did it get started?
Well, I mean, I was a young college student. You know, it was one of those deals where freshman year of college, I'm away from home at University of Vermont. And a whole bunch of us were totally stoked when our resident advisor, you know, our floor advisor said, "Hey, you know, we're going to go do a group activity." I was thinking jumping out of planes. We're like, "Yeah, baby, let's do that." And so that's how I got my start. Dick Swanson. Nice. I don't know if you know Mike Swanson. A lot of people know Mikey. Schmeekle, as we called him when he was little. Schmeek's dad came to my dorm at UVM and taught the first jump course right there in the dorm.
Really?
Memorable. It was awesome.
That's a pretty damn cool way to get a first jump course.
Yeah, and years later, I got to teach Mikey's course.
Right. Now, what were you in college studying?
Everything. I was one of those. I went through like literally 7 majors. I mean, I was interested in everything, you know? I mean, I started off as pre-med because, you know, that's what good little boys from New Jersey do. And then very quickly, I realized that it's not a very good fit for me. So I started studying aerospace. I switched over to Air Force ROTC, and I was going to be a pilot for the Air Force for quite a while. That was my thing. And jumping out of planes was just a logical add-on, you know, to my list of accolades, the resumes, everything. If you want to, you know, get the job that you want, you need to look good.
Oh yeah. Well, so anything you can tack on to aviation, especially if it's something along those lines, it definitely shows a little dedication to flying if you're willing to jump out.
Totally.
You're in college, you're going to do the aerospace thing and you're thinking military and all this stuff. But at what point does it click? Wow, there's a lot more to this sky jumping shit than I kind of expected.
Well, I mean, it was progressive, you know. I think with most of it comes on like a slow freight train where you realize that your life can't go back to the way it was, that you are you're a skydiver, genie's out of the bottle. And now it's a matter of just, you know, you make choices to increase the number of jumps that you make per week. So I got a job rolling burritos in a truck right outside of UVM and, you know, making my money. All the skydivers worked at the burrito truck. Monty's Burritos. It was called Montezuma's Revenge, right? Monty's.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, I was just I realized at that point that jumping out of airplanes was going to be more fun than flying a fighter or whatever I ended up doing, and I switched into psychology because I found that the experience of doing adventure, not just skydiving, but all the other adventure addictions that I developed, were really good for me. They were more healthy than you know, sitting down with a shrink and talking about my parents and, you know, grudges that I have or whatever. That was just it wasn't as moving. And when I jump out of a plane, I still find this is true. My troubles go away. I enter the present moment that Eckhart Tolle speaks of. You know, it was a transcendent, forced enlightenment experience. And so I switched to psychology to dig deeper into why this was so positive for me, why it was so joyful, even though there was all this fear as an aspect of it. There was also joy and euphoria as an aspect, and it was transforming my self-identity.
Sure. Well, and it became a major theme of your entire career, though, mixing psychology and skydiving or any extreme sport.
It is. It still is. And I urge people that are dealing with depression and post-traumatic stress disorder and things like that to do more adventure and particularly outdoor activities instead of more medications.
Sure,
I
sure.
mean,
Now,
yeah, go
before
ahead.
we dig too deep into the skydiving side of things, you mentioned other extreme sports
Yeah.
or other, shall we say, adventurous activities. Where do
Mhm.
those directions take you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if extreme sports is kind of a, it's a label that
Yeah,
implies a death wish, and I don't have one of those.
right.
Um, the I mean, I've got many of them, right? So as a skier, a ski racer, that's always been core for who I
Mm,
am. I mean, I've been skiing since I was 3. I started racing by the time I think it was 9 or something. Made the switch from hockey at that point. I was like,
okay.
gave up hockey and just got deep into skiing, and I still absolutely love it. Even when I can't afford it, I'll
Mm.
strap on my skis or my snowboard in like local parks. When it snows, I'll be out there sometimes 2 and 3 in the morning with a headlamp,
Wow.
just cutting a line through the forest. It's I don't know, it's just very good for me.
Mm,
Something about the flow state of skiing. I feel it in rollerblading, that sort of thing too.
sure.
Uh, and so that's part of it. I also teach climbing, and I have been for a long time. I mean, it's literally longer than skydiving. I've been
Mm,
teaching climbing, and so yeah, we run a program at the Y. They have a big climbing wall that wasn't being used, and I just I swung by and I was like, gosh, they don't have any instructors. Maybe we should just get this program started up again. And it
oh,
kind of
nice.
went fallow. So my wife and our good friend Corinne started teaching this Friday night thing, and families started showing up, and then we got all these people that, like cool finds cool. The idea that
Sure.
if you're doing something awesome, it attracts people that are like you, that it attracts people that you will like.
Oh, yeah.
And so we've created this community, and I mean, we've got people that have done all kinds of serious mountaineering that come with their kids. We've got special needs families that come with their like their Down syndrome daughter, and they all love it. Little kids, I mean, I'm getting 3-year-olds up on the rope, and we get them if just a few feet up, maybe 5 feet or something, and I'll just leave them there and have them bounce around. We'll play dodgeball. We'll throw the ball at them. They kind of bounce around and get used to
Oh, that's awesome.
trusting the rope, and before you know it, the kid is going to be doing, laying down some serious trad routes by the time they're 12 or 13, right?
Oh yeah, it's funny because I find that I see the opportunities that little kids have in things that I find thoroughly entertaining now, and of course I'm getting to the age where the climbing and stuff is a little bit harder and things hurt a little bit more, and I watch these little kids
Yeah.
going, "Why in the hell didn't I have this shit when I was a kid?"
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's so awesome to watch
It
it happen.
it is, and it transforms their life experience, doesn't it? To get them young before they develop the fear, or I should say, internalize the fear that was taught to them by the grown up,
Sure. Oh yeah.
right? I mean, I think we have our initial basic aversions that we're born with. Don't jump into the fire and don't touch the arachnid or the snake. And those are pattern recognition programs that keep our species alive. But the actual fear, the whole drama, the story about it, and the generalized sort of aversions that expand beyond just that context, where you're like, I fell once, and so now anything that involves heights, I'm going to
Sure.
avoid.
Sure.
I mean, right? And what does that cost us? So, to me, that's why adventure sports are so good, is it allows you to go back, but maybe slight to the right or the left of that experience that you had that was bad,
Sure.
or maybe you haven't had a bad experience and you just want to keep on expanding your comfort zone, into areas that are worthwhile risks.
Sure.
I think of it as, don't waste your risk on things that are not meaningful to you.
Oh
You
yeah, absolutely.
right?
And it
Climb a
was
mountain, sure, but don't just run across, traffic to prove a point that you're brave. That's
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
kind of
absolutely. Well,
dumb.
it's funny. I took up climbing through a skydiving buddy of mine that I'm sure you probably know, Kevin Love.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Sure,
he,
sure.
yeah,
Okay.
he took me climbing for the very first time out in Las Vegas, and by then I'd been a skydiver for a couple of years and thought I had a handle on the fear thing, um,
Yeah.
and was in for a rude awakening when it came to climbing. And to this day, climbing. Even though I consider it to be, the type of climbing that I do, which is the clipped-in sport route,
Mhm.
very, very safe climbing,
Yeah.
scares the living shit out of me compared
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
a skydive.
Sure.
And it's very funny. And it always has been kind of funny. And I kind of bend my head around why I'm roped up. Even when I'm top roping,
Yeah.
I am dramatically more anxious about what's going on than I am when I go to make a skydive. And it always confused me and entertained me as well, because I enjoyed having something scare the shit out of me.
Right, right. Well, I mean, you think about basic pattern recognition stuff that we're born with. Falling for a long period of time, the brain doesn't have a lot of pre-interpretive thoughts that where we know what to do if we're falling for more than 3 seconds. There's nothing in our genes that says what to do, because every animal that found itself falling for more than 2 seconds died. So that information didn't stay in the gene pool. Whereas exposure in a high setting where you could sort of slip and fall and break your leg and lay there for a long time, and maybe that information gets stored in the gene pool because you did survive but you got hurt. Maybe that's how it works. It's just a theory of how information in fear gets passed down through the generations. But I think that it falls into the same category again as the snakes and spiders and
Absolutely.
Loud noises, right? Startled.
Right. Well, it's funny how you don't necessarily adapt to it regardless of how long. I mean, I got a lot more comfortable climbing, but there's still a much higher level of fear for me in regard to climbing than there is in skydiving. Not to say that skydiving hasn't scared the shit out of me, because it clearly has.
Yeah, once in a while, right?
As it should.
Totally mellow, and all of a sudden, oh my God!
Oh yeah, I mean, I've had plenty of bolts of fear in regard to skydiving, but climbing has just always been a different beast for me. Case in point was watching the Alex Honnold movie when he climbed El Cap free solo. And it was a hilarious feeling and acknowledging my own reaction to that movie, because I'm on the couch shitting myself and I know he lives.
Yes, exactly.
I know he does it.
I saw it in the theater with my climbing group. And we were just white knuckled watching this. Obviously, he's unbelievably skilled, but he's more than that, right? He's cultivated the ability to kind of let go of all the what if it doesn't work thoughts. And that's a skill that can serve us under certain circumstances, and others get us killed. But but he manages it, and I think we do too, maybe to a smaller degree. But anybody that climbs or jumps out of planes or runs rivers in kayaks, you're pushing back your fear without even noticing it through repeated exposure, without death, right? You're doing things like catching your breath, and instead of freaking out and fixating on what might go wrong, you're breathing and relaxing your shoulders and looking for the answers and finding a way to bring a sense of humor in, right? To dissolve the intensity. To giggle about the ludicrousness of, oh my God, I can't believe I'm about to base jump off this cliff. This is really happening. This is not a dream, and I better pay attention and do it right. And then we realize that the fear wasn't serving us. It wasn't making us safer. What makes us safer is to relax, to be more aware, to be in our bodies, to soften. It becomes more sort of supple, adaptable, and balanced.
Absolutely.
Take in the details. I mean, well, you fly planes, right? And I'm sure that happens all the time, where you get your panties in a bunchie and then you calm yourself back down.
Oh yeah, I mean, you have no choice, and that's one of the things that I have acknowledged from the beginning, that I owe nothing but thanks to every scary situation I've been in, especially, of course, in skydiving, because things are happening so fast. You have to realize you don't have the luxury of freaking out. You don't have the luxury of allowing yourself to let that fear cave into panic. And for me personally, that's how I mentally separate the two. There's panic, which is the fight or flight. I need to run no matter what. And then there's the fear, which is, okay, I'm going to shit myself about this later, but right now I have to deal with this situation.
I always say, you can cry about it in the shower later, but right now you're in the left seat, baby. This is the left.
Well, Kevin Love was actually dealing with learning how to handle the extended fear in regard to climbing. You're 3 or 4 pitches up a 7-pitch climb, and the only way down is up. And you have to realize, just like once you've stepped out of the airplane, you're only going one direction. So you need to cope with what's going on. Take a deep breath, and deal with it. And it's that's
Acceptance
It,
is the word that's coming in.
absolutely, and that's a skill. I mean, that just takes time and repetition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I also noticed that there's an aspect of being afraid that is kind of these cultural voices in us where there's this shaming
Mm,
that we do to ourselves sometimes, right? Especially in long duration things in contexts where there's other people that don't look as scared as we are. And maybe they
right.
feel like it, but on the outside they look like they're totally cool and why am I the only one that's scared and what's wrong with me? I get a lot of folks that are having trouble learning skydiving
Mm,
that come to me, and I do what I call power sessions, where I do at least an hour, sometimes longer, where we just chat about the process that's going to lead them to becoming a skydiver, even though they have driven to the drop zone and turned around at the entrance and come back home many times, even though they've ridden to altitude and weren't able to get out of the plane,
oh yeah.
right? Even though they got hurt and now they're like white knuckle just thinking about it. The road back is it's not always that easy.
No, it can be a tough road, and I've said it before on the podcast. I used to have a spot when I was either just in my learning skydiving or recently licensed, and I had a turnaround point on the highway where I could turn around before this point on the highway with no shame, go back home, head personally held high. But if I drove past that place, I was going to the drop zone to make a skydive.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
there were more than a few times that I was 2 seconds from hitting the brakes, to turn
yeah.
around because and it was a unique way to, all right, nope, this is the spot you've got. And then years later, as I'd become a jump pilot and all this stuff, and I thought I had learned how to cope with fear and this and that, and I had an engine failure on a multi-engine aircraft.
Mhm.
And I felt like I was shitting myself, and that clearly everybody could see. But anybody that knows jump planes knows that most of them have a mirror so you can see the back.
Mhm.
And I caught my reflection in the mirror, and I remember vividly thinking, "You look so calm." And I was
Yeah.
shitting my pants, but I looked calm, and I'm like, "All right, just keep faking it until you're on the ground."
Yeah. Well, and there's something to that, isn't there? Right? The
Sure.
fake it till you make it. Um, it's a lot deeper than people realize. That if you
Oh yeah.
look at, I mean, the fundamental concept was posited by William James, right? So the father of modern psychology. He was basically saying that the thoughts that occur to us and therefore the future that occurs to us, the timeline that we're on, shifts when we change the state of the body and what we do with it, right? So if you act scared, right, where you think about like if I was playing the role in a movie of the scared dude right now, like what
Right.
would I do behaviorally in terms of like the shifting of my eyes left to right and up and down, and my shoulders being uptight, and my hands and fists and my feet and foot fists, and I look agitated and I move fast and I talk fast.
Right. Right.
Right. So, what does that cause in terms of cognition, in terms of answers, solutions that I can see? And how am I magnetizing my future? Is it going to be the best case or the worst case scenario?
Right.
Obviously, I'm getting drawn, with my thoughts inadvertently into the worst case scenarios. And if I choose, James suggested, to walk slower, to breathe slower, to relax the muscles, then the thoughts that occur are literally causing us to have access to a different timeline and access
Mm,
to a different version of you. There's
mm.
always two pilots sitting in the left seat, superimposed over each other. Which one
Sure.
you become is based on how you act, how you talk, and you kind of cheer yourself up into a better reality.
Sure. Well, it's almost the same mentality that you have a tandem instructor and a tandem student. The
Yes.
tandem instructor acts calm and acts collected, and some of that rubs off on the student,
It
whether it's,
sure does.
yeah,
And
and
it
so
rubs
it's,
off on the tandem master.
what's that?
That's it rubs off on the tandem master too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've been in the middle of malfunctions with a tandem where just my active acting calm for the student calmed me down to deal with the situation.
That's the whole point. And it is
Yep.
amazing that we're capable of expanding comfort zone in those ways, in sort of acting ways. And at the same time, as we start to calm down and we start to feel good, on the rock, where, because I like to free solo. I don't go super high, but I do free solo. I admit it. Um, and I'll be in these places. I was in one, it was 2 days ago, where I kind of went, just for a second. I wasn't slipping, but it was a moment. And I kind of went, to do this breath thing. It sounds a little different each time, depending on the context.
Sure.
And I stopped all motion. I stopped all cognition, and I relaxed my muscles, and I cleared my head. And it only took about 4 or 5 seconds. And I started to smile and giggle at myself again and feel good and forgive myself for being scared all in one moment. I made that about face. And to me, that's a version of enlightenment that adventure sports people get, that
Sure.
that Buddhist monks don't get as a training. And it works both ways, because sitting in meditation has proven to get rid of the startle response.
Sure.
That's actually been proven. Richard Davidson did an extensive study with Tibetan Buddhist monks. He's a University of Wisconsin professor that studying fear and startle response and things like that. And he got the Dalai Lama to send him a bunch of monks to stick in PET scan machines, positron emission tomography. And he found that through years of meditation, they literally dissolved their innate startle response. And so they were able to choose their response and not have it handed to them by evolution.
Which is obviously something worth trying to attain, for sure, and very difficult to attain, without a doubt. I think we kind of just slam it into ourselves. We're the fast forward version of that, and I don't think there's the control involved. We're just put back into an environment where we've kind of Pavlov's dog trained ourselves. Here's where you start drooling, or here's where you
start breathing bigger, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Heroic breathing, that instead of allowing ourselves to freak out.
Well, and I remember, I wish I knew where I had read it, but the general gist of it was people were trying to say that people like us that enjoy extreme sports and can handle what people consider to be really high pressure situations just have a different chemistry to us. And I always found that a bit personally offensive in that I never did think it was that I'm not getting hit with the same adrenaline or any of that. I'm just handling it in a different way.
I agree with that. And it's a much more positive conclusion for me.
Yeah.
That gives me hope that everybody who is a jittery sort of person in certain contexts, right?
Sure.
Maybe in another context you're totally superhero brave. In others you're like, and so you're into your trauma, your old stuff coming back or whatever. I have to believe that we can train ourselves into having a softer fear response.
Absolutely.
And then eventually the heroic consciousness that comes in and that's not just positive, but constructive.
Sure, absolutely. Well, and a lot of the fearful situations that I've found myself in retrospect, looking back, are huge learning experiences.
Oh, yeah.
Enormous learning experiences, because you see how you reacted in one way and it didn't go well. You see how you reacted in this situation and it did go well. And,
Right.
I've never been called the calmest person in the world. So when starting skydiving or something extreme like that was starting out, the fear level and the reactions were definitely up there. And of course, over the years, everything slows down, everything calms down. And what used to scare the shit out of me is now just okay, cope with it type of thing.
Yeah. This is the expansion of the comfort zone. The fear goes away because the light came in.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like you make darkness go away. You illuminate through understanding, through self-awareness of your physiological actions. Right. The mirror. Right. The looking in the mirror. That expectation that things are going to go poorly starts to immediately shift into an expectation that things are going to go well when you act a little bit cooler. That's a powerful skill.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's one that obviously takes a lot of time and practice and
forgiveness.
Continuing.
Right?
Yeah.
Forgiveness of the times when you kind of lost it a little bit and hyper fixated on one aspect of the situation and didn't expand your awareness to a larger scope to like, I mean, flying an airplane, perfect example, right? So we're taking off. I'm not going to say exactly which drop zone this was, but I was the jump master, not the pilot. And static line students were taking off, and about 1,000 feet or something like that. The engine goes nothing. And the pilot is then playing with the key, trying to turn the airplane back on, because that's how you make engines go, right? Is you turn the key. and it wasn't working, and he's fixated on this, mind looping again and again. Well, this is the answer, there's no other answer, this is the answer. And I looked over it with, I had a little bit more perspective because I was physically further from the panel than he was, and mentally further from the conclusion that he had drawn that this is the only answer. And I looked down at the fuel selector, and my student had pushed on it, and it went to off.
Oh,
so I flipped the fuel selector to both, and the engine started up on its own because of the relative wind, and that was that. We went and jumped, So, but that the pilot was stuck in this natural tendency to hyperfixate.
Sure. Well, and especially in a sport like skydiving, that can happen so ridiculously fast. I mean, how many fatalities over the years from someone only going for one handle, never thinking anything outside. You just
I got a kick out of these line twists.
Yeah, all the way to the ground.
All the way to Cyprus, or maybe if you're lucky, but sometimes the Cyprus doesn't do it, right?
Sure. Well, and both you and I have been jumping a long time now, long before Cyprus was either much of a thing or it was still a fad, So it's now obviously pretty much standard everywhere, but back in the day, it was all down to you. So now, speaking of, as you got into skydiving, your reputation in skydiving has long been kind of the guru. People come to you for advice and inspiration and all this stuff, but you're kind of one of the originals, one of the OGs that were doing this, because back in the day it was maybe you got lucky and you had a mentor as a really kick-ass instructor that helped bring you along. But you're one of the first that I remember hearing about that wasn't just doing that at a local drop zone. You were traveling to teach people at the time really kind of revolutionary ideas on how to think about what we were doing. And get it kind of out of the box of just automatic and start thinking about it. How did you, where did you transition in the sport to going, something, I've got a lot to offer that doesn't necessarily tie into the normal AFF program?
Right.
How did you decide it's time to start spreading the word?
Well, I mean, I made a transition from being a young, quite young drop zone owner in Vermont, doing the standard stuff, AFF and tandem. But I was doing it in a different way. I was training my tandems for 2 to 4 hours, in horizontal hanging harnesses, the Gregory trainer. I would sit down and draw vectors on the board, and I'd talk about navigation and patterns. And in that perspective alone, that number one, that skydivers are smart, skydiving students are smart. And if you just take the time and you give them more information, they'll do better and they'll come back more.
Sure.
They'll become skydivers because you treat them like skydivers and not like skydiving students. So that was pivotal in a shifting of perspective, and I was validated that my contemplative and compassionate approach was working better than the old tough military. Just because I said it means you're now responsible for it.
Right.
That old command style teaching. I kind of was throwing it away, and I was proven that I was right. And so that's when I had I got into paragliding, and I had an accident.
Okay.
And this was the shift for me. I took a collapse, and this is back in the days when the paragliders weren't very safe. It's obviously still not perfectly safe, but it is far better than it was.
Right.
And I was all busted up, and I was forced to really take a closer look at the internal mechanisms of fear, the internal mechanisms of visualization, and that becoming a path to a specific reality. And so in the process of recovery, it deepened me. I did more research into these psychology subjects and relevance of meditation in particular to this stuff. And so when I started getting back into the sport, I was down in Z Hills. I got a job with Tony Irigallo. I came up with a new design for parachutes, this one-way valve system called Airlocks, and a flying technique to reduce the risks in turbulence, utilizing roll axis to initiate turns using the harness with a loosened chest strap. This was kind of a big deal, and it was new.
Oh, it's groundbreaking.
To fly coordinated turns. And that's where it all started to kick in on a larger scale, because of course Tony and I were competing, the X Games and all that, and people knew our names. They knew our names, and so we'd show up at a boogie or whatever and do some free fly coaching, and then
now for those that are listening that don't know your specific history, you're competing in the X Games. What was the discipline?
Free flying.
Okay.
That was my game. We had lots of folks that were doing the sky surfing, and then we had people doing the free flying, and a couple that doing a crossover, doing both.
Mm-hmm.
Olaf did.
Yeah.
He was one of the only ones, actually.
Yeah, I talked to him about it, and we had a good giggle about him having his board cutaway handle sticking out of the fly of his blue jeans.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually found my old sky surfing suit just recently, a goofy looking. It was a sit suit back in those days.
Yep.
But yeah, the sport was, sort of escalating in these new directions, and people wanted to know how to do it, and even before that, you had Norman Kent that was shooting Mike Michigan. He was shooting Deanna, his wife, Deanna Kent, doing crazy, wild freestyle stuff that we were like, what's that all about? That's what really brought it in to the limelight. To me, it was before X Games. It was Roger Nelson, freak flying. That was the big shift. But again, these guys weren't traveling around teaching seminars as much as we were, as far as I know. And so we were getting all these invites because of ESPN.
Sure.
They knew our names. And so I'd fly in and I'd say, well, let's talk about sit flying. Now, sit flying is not that easy, especially if all you've done is lay on your belly. Gus Wing always used to say, belly flying's cool if it's all you can do. and it does require us to collect our emotions and stop moving around, hold still. I always say still but not stiff. To bring in the idea of meditating before you leave the plane and holding that feeling as you're getting up and moving to the door and exiting the plane smooth and happy and chill. Call it contemplative skydiving, I guess. That's where it started to really blossom, because nothing else was working when I was teaching the students. Like, you hold this body position, and they would spin so fast. They'd tumble and spin and go all over the place, and their eyes would be bloodshot, and they would have their shoes falling off in the spins or whatever. I had to pull in everything that I could think of to do a better job of teaching. So I think if you were to really boil it down, my teaching method was sculpted by necessity. I became the kind of teacher that I am because nothing else worked as well. Sure.
Well, it's funny, too, because the style with which you teach and kind of the mantra, if I can use that word, the mentality of especially free flying as it really started to kick off from that time frame, very much became about relax, loose, easy, very comfortable, and almost a hippie mentality, very much, and for a long time, especially free flying really echoed that hippie mentality, not just in the flying, but in the vibe on the ground, the attitudes, the jumpsuits, the rigs, everything
creative, right? Colorful,
absolutely
creative, acceptant of weirdness. We were the weird ones. Everybody else was wearing black jumpsuits with their big grippers and their astronaut helmets. And
Oh yeah.
they'd yell at each other in the landing area. Oh, you're supposed to dock here, and you went low. And we were kind of in a no fail mentality. We'd go up, we'd fly around, we'd have fun. I saw you.
Oh yeah. No,
I
some of my
didn't touch you,
favorite
but I saw
jumps.
you.
Some of my favorite jumps were complete clusterfucks.
Yeah,
Absolutely nothing went like we planned, but it was so much fun.
yeah.
And I never understood. I did the '98 Nationals, and I was shooting video for sky surfing,
Mhm.
and the juxtaposition between myself, my partner, Craig and Tanya O'Brien, Omar was on board, and then Arizona Airspeed was in the back, and it was. The plane was divided right down the middle, not
Yeah.
just in discipline, but in mentality. And it
Oh,
was
totally.
so, I'd never had it shoved in my face quite like that before. And I liked my side of the plane a lot better.
I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. And I gotta remember, I'm also a four-way guy. I
Yeah,
came from that background. The
sure.
called Team Vermont. It was Ole Thompson, Terry Mayer, it was his wife, and Bob Moore. And we were good. We were serious about it. Jack Jeffries and Kirk Werner were coaching us. Sully Williams. Um, and we were on our way, to being that version of a
Sure.
skydiver. And that's when my accident happened. So that was the turning point for my career. So I was kind of forced into this other uh,
Sure.
way of doing it because I just, at least for a while there, I couldn't do the four-way. I just wasn't
Yeah.
physically able.
And there were a few people from that side of the fence, so to speak, and I hate to separate it, but a few guys, somebody like Craig Girard is a huge example of somebody that can flip back and forth between both. I mean,
Yes.
never have I met such an easygoing person. And when he and I talked on the podcast, he's just very relaxed and loose about the entire sport, and that just happened to be what he was excelling at in the time. But he'll also go flick off some building, having a blast, and there, at least back then, there didn't seem to be that many people that were like that. So as you and a few guys like you were coming out that way, it was a pretty novel approach to skydiving. It really was.
Yeah, we were the weird ones for sure. But the positive attitude is contagious.
Oh
It
yeah,
just tastes better. You know what I mean? It's just I understand that you maybe have specific goals of wanting to be on big ways or win medals or turn more points. Great, that's awesome. Just don't lose the essential essence of what it is to be a skydiver. That this is
sure.
for fun. This
Oh
is
yeah.
for connection with other people, for that camaraderie. And if you take it too seriously to the point where you're getting angry, you're not doing it right.
Oh yeah. Well, I remember listening to a four-way team getting an argument because something hadn't gone quite right, and one of them screamed something along the lines, "Let's just turn off our cypresses and fucking go in if we don't get the last point." What?
Yeah.
What? That's no.
Okay.
Come on.
Other sports beckon, dude.
Yeah.
You've lost the theme. Yeah, I get it. And so even then, people can have these awakenings where they just say, "Enough. I don't have the energy anymore flowing into me to want to do this." And either
Right.
they drop out, or they have a refreshed perspective, a new beginning, where they say, maybe I'll put on one of those, stupid free fly suits, or maybe I'll put on one of those goofy dresses, the wingsuits,
Sure.
and try that, or whatever. Dare to be a student, dare
Oh
to
yeah.
suck again at something novel, and sort of renew that spark.
Well, that's the great thing about skydiving specifically. My way to cope with the burnout that I eventually hit as a full-time tandem instructor was to take about a 4-year break. And when I did start jumping again, I started jumping because a buddy of mine asked me to go on a load, and the idea of it made me nervous again. And I got butterflies, and
Yeah.
so I became a born-again fun jumper that sucks at almost everything he tries lovingly. I'm never going to be
I get it.
never going to be the greatest free flyer. I'm never going to be the greatest swooper, and I enjoy that fact because it gives me something to aspire to and something to learn. And then, of course, you watch the kids in the damn wind tunnel now, and I can be outflown by a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
So, humble is just a normal word for me nowadays.
Yeah, yeah. It's do we really need to be the best? The ego needs that, right?
Sure.
The vulnerable self that doesn't actually exist, that it's an illusion that we create, and it's a cultural voice within us, but it's not real. To me, real is who we are in the present moment, our awareness.
Sure.
the joy of an exit gone well, gone badly, whatever it is, where you're in this moment in that first 1 second or so as you're going, you're so hyper aware of every little detail that's going on. To me, that's aliveness.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's not
Well,
my ego at all. That's part of that.
exactly. Well, and I hate to see it, but you watch people struggling to hit that number one position, which, I mean, let's face it, most people are never going to be the best. Or if they are, it's such a fleeting moment to spend so much time suffering without enjoyment to try and reach this one little goal that chances are is going to be pretty anticlimactic when it's done. You know, the people that I've seen enjoy being, upwards of the best are the ones that are also having just a shitload of fun.
Right.
You know, that's one of the things that always drew me to skydiving, and swoopers nowadays are a great example of this. Is they're all rooting for each other.
Yes.
You know, I mean, sure, they want to be on top of the podium, but you'll watch, the freestyle competitions, and the guys that are in the competition are on the sidelines as fans, and that says volumes.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. It was the same way in the X Games. Everybody was rooting for everybody else.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first times that I'd ever done that. Because like ski racing, you would watch everybody else ski, and there's an aspect of your experience like, wow, that guy's really good. That's really beautiful. And then there's this other voice that says, oh man, I hope he falls. I hope he doesn't beat me. I hope he skids out on this turn and loses some speed. And that's the ego voice. But what if this was all of us together rooting for the ultimate performance?
Oh yeah.
Like when I watch a football game where I don't care who wins because I don't have an interest in the teams, I root for the great play.
Yes.
For the wonderful catch, the beautiful running play where he just dodges and flips over somebody and keeps on going. I'm rooting almost for the ball. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's so. Yeah. And so, what if we were to take that approach to skydiving, and still reach for high performance, reach for our best possible performance right now, and everybody else's also, to see great skydiving, to root for great skydiving. We don't have to give up our dreams of awesomeness as we dissolve our egos at all. We don't have to give up those dreams, and that's what pushes the sport forward. All aspects.
Absolutely. Well, and I always fall back to the general public, the vast majority of the world that has nothing to do with skydiving. They think we're all badass nuts.
Yep.
I mean, we're the very, very small collective of people pushing to be the best of a very small group of people, when the rest of the world is all like, oh, you guys are all ready.
Yeah, you're all nuts. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and they don't make a distinction, do they, between somebody who's a world champion and somebody who just jumps and sort of lands somewhere on the drop zone.
Oh yeah,
close enough. That perspective from I don't know. I think it might be helpful for us to see ourselves through the eyes of a woofo every once in a while.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know if you get this feeling. It's something that kicked in sometime this year, where I was walking in from a jump, and I don't remember the context exactly. I was in Norway, and looking at all the other people. I think it was an in-hop, actually, right? So you jump into new places, and I'm looking around, and like all these skydivers with their parachutes over their shoulders, and they're stowing their toggles and turning off their GoPros, and I just had these words in my mind come out real loud. We are so freaking cool. And I don't mean that in an ego way. I mean it in like goosebumps. Like, look where we are. Like, I'm sure that Armstrong walking on the moon was like, holy fuck.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Look where we are. And it's that appreciation, I think, that keeps us in the sport. It's not the medals. It's not the number of points. It's not the next benchmark or the next license. It's the awareness in this moment that this is worthwhile.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure most jump pilots that I know that are jumpers as well are the same. Every phone that I've had that's been capable of taking pictures is full of pictures of me flying over a drop zone, whatever drop zone it may be. I have now, one of the new iPhones, and it's got 10,000 pictures, and I guarantee 5,000 of those at least are pictures from the air or on the ground of something going on in skydiving, because Yeah, you just have to go, holy shit, you know, and that aspect is bled through so many different parts of my life. I was lucky enough just to do a hiking tour through Nepal and go up to base camp as well.
I
And
want
the
to do that. So
appreciation.
by the way, we're going to talk about this because I want to do that. Maybe
Oh, it
after the
was.
show, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. It was one of those things where because I've learned over so many years, I was able to sit down where I was and go, holy shit.
Yeah.
And look around and really soak in where I was and what I was seeing. And it's because I do that almost every day. I mean, and who gets to do that? I don't know any bankers that take pictures of the counter they work at every day. You know, this is.
Yet they could if they wanted to see it from a different perspective where
Sure.
holy crap, I'm above ground. My heart is beating. There's all this blood going through my body, distributing, you know, the wealth of the food that I've eaten and getting rid of the stuff that I don't want. And everything is still, my eyes work. I can see stuff. Just
Sure.
I'm capable of perceiving time in it. Just the act of being alive
Oh,
is
yeah.
is a miracle, and maybe it takes people a near death experience to get to that. Maybe.
Yeah.
I think for most people that have had a life altering epiphany that makes the goosebumps come up just in normal moments. We're like, oh my God, I'm alive. Here I am, and it's an opportunity to breathe in another breath of air. Maybe that's the answer that adventure sports brings to us, these moments of near death experiences where we appreciate being alive.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm sitting at home on a long, boring, rainy day when I've got nothing to do but sit on the couch and watch shitty Netflix, and I'm not particularly thrilled with the day. Still, at some point during that day, I'll go, well, it gets a whole lot worse than this. And I get to look forward to more experiences, and I'll just savor what I've got right now because I've had much worse days than this. And that's an appreciation that I would not have had if it weren't for experiences like this.
Sure. Yeah. Contrast. Yeah, absolutely. Contrast can help us to appreciate moments that could appear mundane that aren't. You know,
Sure.
You can make a skydive where it's like, yeah, whatever. I'm just doing a solo. It's just a solo. Well, but what if this potentially, if you shifted your focus, was an educational solo where you tried something new that you've never done before and you learned something? What if in this skydive you woke up in free fall? You really were in this moment, wide awake, super consciousness, euphoric super consciousness right now.
Sure.
What if that happened right now? What if this was the best jump of your life?
Sure.
So
well, and it's having
there's no mundane.
No. Mundane is a state of mind for sure. Absolutely. I mean, people can turn the most blasé things into something spectacular just by shifting their mentality about it.
Yep.
Now you pushed into so many different directions in the sport because you competed in free flying and you've been a coach and an instructor forever, but you also started doing the design in regard to equipment as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Now, how did that come about?
Well, I mean, that paragliding accident that I talked about, you know, I took a collapse, right? So I became interested in parachute stability. And that is really two directions, right? Because one is how to fly your parachute in a way that increases the stability, that reduces the chances of losing control of the canopy, losing shape of the canopy, that kind of thing. The other part was, well, what if we could keep the air inside the airfoil? And so that led to not only the airlock concept, but to taking the initial prototypes that I built down to Florida to Tony Irigallo, saying, "Hey man, what do you think?" He said, "So, what do you?" I remember it was a small prototype, and he's spinning around in a circle. It was during the Thanksgiving party. He always threw a really good Thanksgiving party at his shop, and I showed it to him, and he went outside and he's spinning around in a circle to inflate the airfoil, like around and around and around and around. Right. And he's really interested, like, whoa, this is, he says, "Do you want a job?" And says, "Hell yeah." And that's kind of where it started. He hired me and put me in the job of research and development.
Wow.
And, of course I had to learn how to build, his canopies his ways. And there was a lot involved in that. And that's where he was like, "I want to introduce you to Marco Jaakkola from Finland, who's also a pilot and a skydiver, really wonderful man. I love that guy." And he taught me all these little details. And Sandy, who's now at Aerodyne, Sandy Kimball, also taught me kind of cracking the whip, unpick it, do it again. And, so I was the new kid. And then eventually I became, the top person at the shop, and I was doing all the hardest stuff. And I was, designing from the ground up. And we came up with the Jedi, and at that point it was Tony and I and Marco working together to design. And I was having outside the box ideas because I hadn't been in the industry, that aspect of it, as long. So I'd be like, well, why don't we try this then? And they'd be like, well, okay. They just hadn't thought of it because I was the outsider.
Sure.
And I've always had that angle on this stuff. It's like, well, yeah, but why not? Just because you haven't done it doesn't mean it's not possible.
Sure. Well, now it's funny because, of course, now looking at skydiving now, the idea of a high performance canopy that doesn't have basically the airlocks, you wouldn't even think twice. Of course it does. Absolutely, it's a pressurized canopy. But back then, this was pretty fucking revolutionary. Well,
the closing off the leading edge of the center chamber on cross brace canopies, it does create a form of airlocking. But the full form of the airlock, I mean, you can tell, like after an airlock canopy lands, it doesn't deflate at all for several seconds. You can run and belly flop on it, won't let you hit the ground. So there is a distinction there. So I don't want that to sound like I'm taking credit for every parachute out there.
Right.
I mean, granted, there's aspects, things that the drawstring slider or whatever that I came up with that you do see in everything, which is fun. To see ideas that once were just a scribbling on a napkin. Quite literally.
Well, now and I might be wrong on time frame, but airlocks came about before cross brace was a thing. Yes.
Airlocks came out actually after the cross brace design, but before the cross brace elliptical tricell, where the nose was actually closed in a significant portion of it. So we had the Excalibur from PD. Which was cross-braced. It was a square or rectangle, right? It wasn't elliptical at all. Made it from 11, and the whole nose was open. And so they opened kind of hard. And even before that, you had Daniel Esquivel of Argentina designed and built an accuracy canopy that had cross-braced tricell cells. Not all of them, but some of them were. I saw photographs of it. So he was the one that actually invented it, as far as I'm concerned. But the airlock was sort of an add-on. It was like, I did cross-braced tricell airlock canopies. I did bicell airlock canopies. I did, standard tricells. I did all kinds of, versions of this stuff. And it's not done. I mean, like what we can do with this, all the different versions of airlocks, of seam sealing and deflation after landing tech. There's all kinds of valve release systems that I've been testing that it's not done. After 25 years I've been designing canopies, I'm not even close to done.
And the materials are changing drastically now. It's no longer F111, it's so many different things.
And maybe someday it'll be more than just regular ZP, but it's just a matter of keeping an open mind.
Yeah, for sure.
To not feel complete is to feel open to new, better possibilities. And,
sure.
And it's scary, dangerous in the testing, but it's worth doing.
Oh, God, yes. That's one of the jobs I definitely would not want in regard to skydiving is test pilot. No, thanks.
Sure. I could send you some prototypes if you get a buzz.
Okay.
You think you got rock climbing?
Yeah, no, fuck that, man.
It's something that's never been jumped before. You're like, yeah, this could be interesting.
Yeah, one of the benefits to having scared myself enough is now that I'm 50 years old, I get to say, all right, cool.
Yeah.
I don't need to prove it to myself anymore.
Yeah, I turned 53 in May.
Yeah.
And I know the feeling. I know what you mean. Because I don't, base jump naked anymore. You know what I mean? It's like there's things where you they kind of tone it down a little bit.
Yep.
I'm a dad as well. It changes how I think and act for sure. But I still have to keep pushing forward because it's who
Sure.
I am. It's who I
Well,
am. And if I stop, then who am I being? You
Well,
know?
that's it. I mean, I think after as many years as you and I and some of the, I guess they'd call them OGs in skydiving now have been
Mhm.
doing this, is it's so deeply ingrained. I like to say that I'm only as mature as I need to be,
Mhm.
and that's depending on who you're talking to. That's either complimenting yourself or insulting yourself.
Mhm.
But I've been able to, make a pretty good life out of being a big kid for the most part. I learned when to be responsible, and I learned when I didn't have to be responsible, and
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's a fine skill to have.
Yeah. I noticed that, because I live, in sort of suburbia. You take the kids to school and I get to know all the other parents and they're very normal.
Sure,
And they think of me as Peter Pan,
sure,
sort of annoyingly free. And I noticed that often their they substitute their idea for adultishness, responsibility,
mm,
um, and they're actually shoving in there kind of sideways, uh, being stuffy, being
yeah,
uptight, being a no person instead of a yes person, you know.
sure.
Um, and so most of the time, like, hey, you guys want to go climb a mountain? We're gonna go down to the river, do some canyoneering, or bring some kayaks or whatever. And almost none of them would be like, all right, come on, let's do it now.
Right.
They don't just jump on it. They're like, oh,
Well,
well, I gotta, yeah.
I think so many people have decided that the true badge of being an adult is saying no to things that
Uh-huh.
they undoubtedly must think are cool. That sounds so cool, but I'm an adult now, so I can't do
Exactly.
that.
Yeah, like
For
where does the enshrining of self-sacrifice come in? Where were we taught that sacrifice is noble?
Yeah,
You know,
well,
I mean,
and especially for people like yourself, that are not only having lived this lifestyle as long as you have, but you, like I, have children. The lesson I want my kid to pick up on is that you should love your life, you should enjoy it, and
yeah,
obviously you want to try and mitigate risks as much as possible, but not flee from risk just for the sake
bingo.
of this fake safety. I mean,
Hmm.
and I never understood how someone would deny themselves all these different things in life within reason just for the sake of what, saving face or pretending to be an adult. That doesn't
Right.
make any sense to me.
Or did you have that story? Say, see, I did everything that I could to be a good parent, to be an adult, be responsible or whatever. But if you're not serving your inner child,
Yeah,
if you're not keeping that alive, well, then what's keeping your cells alive? You know what I mean?
yeah,
What's keeping you from aging? You talk about oxidation, right? Aging is oxidation. Well, being joyful is an antioxidant. Being
absolutely,
playful, dancing, having fun, that's an antioxidant. That's an anti-old fartness, whatever you want to call that.
absolutely.
And so I feel like if you want to be a true health nut, you make happiness your number one goal. Uh,
Sure.
and even beyond happiness, authentic emotion, how you actually feel. You let that flow naturally. And
Right.
sometimes means you're pissed off right now. It doesn't mean you're an angry person. You're just appropriately pissed off about something that needs to change.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's unfortunate that the majority of people assume that to allow yourself to behave in that way is to, not be a responsible adult or not this. It just that kind of stuff never did make any sense to me. I'm going to
Yeah.
be miserable because it shows I'm an adult.
Yeah. Well,
No.
we do have some role models. If you look back at the people that have been enshrined,
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
that gave it all up, that they sacrificed for others, and we say, well, that's what a good person does.
Mm,
And yes, it's true that being selfish is lame, but at the same time, being selfless is lame too. Because if you love everybody, you got to love yourself too.
sure.
you're
Absolutely.
you're included in that soup of humanity, and so therefore your inner child, your need to dance and play and have fun and go on inspired journeys, um, that needs to be fed too.
Oh yeah, no. I'd say that one of the running jokes is that my daughter, who is 22 and in law school, is a more mature adult than I am, which in a lot of ways is true. But it's this running fun joke because I kind of give her permission to go be goofy. Yes, you're doing
Mhm.
these things and this is what you want, but you still get to act like a fool if that's what you feel the need to do and
Yeah,
go have fun and enjoy life on top of the other things. I mean,
right.
all of life is not happy go lucky. And yes, you have responsibilities and shit you need to take care of, but who cares if somebody thinks you're a goofy idiot, or you
Mhm.
post goofy pictures or my daughter going, oh, geez, there's my dad. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, I'd be
I love
ashamed if she wasn't saying that kind of stuff.
right. Yeah. It sounds like you're teaching her in the way that I interpret it as a good way, that you can be whatever you want to be. You can, walk the path, the role of, of a grown up,
Yeah.
and do it in a way where that role is not who you are, it's just what you're being, and you can step out of it. I noticed, we had a school thing, right? We have, it was called a STEM night, right?
Okay.
And so at the STEM night, where I was helping out, volunteering, doing some work at this kind of music, teaching about sine waves and things like that with the art teacher, the music guy and the art teacher. They're awesome people.
Hmm.
And the principal was in there at the end. She's like, "Come on, clear it out. I know you're having fun, but it's 9 o'clock. It's all over." And she's, playing her role. Come on, let's
Right.
get going. And then I watched the music teacher just take something and just knock it over on the ground and go and stuck his tongue out at her. And then they all had this little interaction that nobody else was supposed to see, that they
Right.
were goofing around in the context of their roles. They stepped above their roles, and instantly I fell in love with all three of them.
Sure.
And I feel like that's the new reality that we're stepping into, that everybody can be in their role but not possessed by it.
Yes.
How about
Yes. And that's
how
that's
about
a truly lofty goal to aspire to. And some people like them, it sounds like they've kind of got that nailed. They know, all right, this is the time and the place, but
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like you said, knowing when to, fly the aircraft, and knowing
yep.
when to load up a spitball in the straw that you stored, turn around and whack somebody in the face with a spitball. You know
Oh,
what I mean?
absolutely.
Theoretically, you can do both.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's one of my favorite tricks ever told to me was by the guy that taught me to fly the Twin Otter. Was that one of the funnest things in the world to do on jump run while flying obviously a very intense experience is to roll the window down and throw marshmallows at the people getting ready to exit the airplane.
I like that.
It's a wonderful thing. It's so fun when you finally got into that level. Of course, it's nice, but you can do both. And all right, I know how to be very responsible and do all the things that I need to do, but I can also chuck these marshmallows at you while you're jumping out of the airplane.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that playfulness can be taken too far.
Sure.
Obviously, where they're doing pop-ups on takeoff so much that they lose airspeed below 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
That's not fun. That's dangerous. It might feel fun.
Yes.
I mean, so knowing where is that line between safety and playfulness, not too loose, not too tight. That's what
Yep.
Buddha said.
Yep. Yep. Well, and that's in every aspect, whether it's flying or jumping or climbing or anything like that, for
Mhm.
sure. Now,
Balance.
moving forward professionally, especially when it comes to jumping, what comes next for Mr. Germain?
Well, I mean, I love teaching canopy courses, so that will continue to be in my future.
This has
Flying,
been what,
flying into
15,
different
20
places.
years you've been doing this?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it gets better all the time. Just the way that I teach it gets a little bit more evolved, and the way the exercises that I have them do, and I fly with them. I got radios, and I can talk to them when we do
Awesome.
two ways and things like that. And of course, filming landings, and that keeps evolving every year. In doing instructor courses, things like that. That's huge.
Sure.
I think that's how the world gets changed, is teaching people how to teach better. And a lot of them are doing great. They just haven't thought of all the possibilities. And you get an old fart like me that says, "Oh, have you thought of this?" Wow, really? Yeah, the extra mile, baby.
Yep.
The If you suffer as I do from a high level of give a shit, then you go the extra mile and you're constantly creatively thinking, well, what else could I do to help
Right.
this person who might get hurt if I don't intervene?
Sure.
because they were undertaught, or because they didn't get it, because the teacher didn't explain it in a way that that individual got it, where they
Sure.
understood it. That breakthrough moment didn't happen yet, which means that they're in this mental place of not knowing what they're doing, and they could be on a collision course with a future that sucks.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
and so I will continue to do that and make more videos. And I do, people see the YouTube videos, of course, that's all free, but I worked very hard to create paid content where
Sure.
I dug deeper into it, and there's PowerPoint and kind of including landings and flights and stuff that I've recorded. But I wanted to be able to reach out with a lot of the information that I do in the in-person courses to places that I'll never go to, or I'll only go to once every few years. They can download the information, which is awesome. So I'm going to keep doing that. And so if anybody has ideas for what else I can add, whether it's a little YouTube video, I wish you would tell these damn kids to stop screwing with their GoPros,
Right.
and fly the skydive, or tell the kids to leave more space between the groups or whatever, and explain why. These are important questions that need to come back in, and I got to answer them. But obviously, the more involved content, there are topics that I haven't thought of yet, and I rely on the skydiving public to say, hey, how about this?
Sure.
How
Now,
how do you jump naked in the winter? That.
Right. Now, how do people find this content? What's the YouTube channel?
Well, the YouTube channel is under my name, and you can also go to the Adventure Wisdom. That's the content that's longer and in depth and that kind of thing. But yeah, it's and the other thing that I started doing, partly because the travel is exhausting, is web teaching. So I'll do one-on-one, like power session, and I think of this like hiring a limo. It's just going to be just you. It's private.
Sure.
What happens in the limo stays in the limo. And then you have more like Super Shuttle, where you can do a 1 month Tuesday. It's Tuesdays evening, where people sign on, and there's 3 or 4 people. Some of them have 10 jumps. Some of them have hundreds of jumps. Some of them have 2 jumps, and they're looking for the courage and the understanding that supports the courage.
Sure.
To get up in the air. People they get hurt on an AFF level 1.
Sure.
It happens all the time. So I'm out there trying to give them the information that's going to make them feel confident enough to go and get back in that plane, and better yet get out of it when the time comes.
For sure.
And that's neat. How you can be. I mean, I've got people all over the world that sign on to these live sessions. So
which is awesome.
Like in 2 hours, I'm doing one with somebody in Dubai.
Oh, nice. Well, now let me ask. So I'm a brand new student, or I've got 20 jumps. I'm listening to this podcast, and I want to be able to tune in. I want to be able to find out how to get a hold of you, or I want to know where your next in-person course is, because I don't like the internet shit, and I don't learn anything from a screen. How do they find out how to hook up both online and in person with you?
Well, adventurewisdom.com is my primary website. And Brian at adventurewisdom.com is my email. So, I'm pretty responsive. I feel bad every once in a while. Things get missed and I get busy because I'm still building canopies. I'm still, doing relines and making new videos and doing dishes and chasing kids around at, piano practice. And
Right.
got to get them to the wind tunnel, all that stuff. I wish I could afford to do more, but
sure.
I'm accessible, and sometimes people just send me a quick little question, and I'll answer it in text right away. But most of the questions that people have are much more elaborate, and I need to give the full answer. Otherwise, I'm kind of sucking at my job. So the best thing that I can offer is to fly into your drop zone and be there with you. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And hang out and, make eye contact and shake hands and show you packing tricks, show you and land. I jump too, right? So, I'll land the way that I want you to land. And
right.
I don't always jump a super swoop canopy because I want to teach you how to fly a parachute similar to, what you got.
Sure.
So I jump, I'll jump a 150 or a 136 or something. without a wild hook turn, despite the fact that I really want to.
Of
uh, so that's the best way, and if you're a new jumper, you just talk to the drop zone owner and say, hey, listen, we want to bring Brian in. And a lot of times they'll say, well, we got another course with this other company or this other
Sure.
individual. That's fine. That's fine. Just schedule my course, a month or more apart from when their course is going to be there, so we're not stealing each other's fire. Let's keep throwing, instructors at the problem, because my way of teaching is my way, and then you get other teachers that have wonderful wisdom, deeply valuable information. Learn from them too.
Sure. Well, I'm sure you, just like me, have had students that you instantly connected with, and students that, despite your best efforts, there just wasn't that connection. I didn't have a way of putting it that could, fit into their understanding, but the instructor that I work with on a daily basis could, and it's pulling some of that ego out of it as well, because there's a fair amount of ego involved in being a good instructor, and it's a testament to a good instructor and teacher when you can go, maybe I don't have the answer. He's going to give you similar information, but maybe in a way that you'll understand, which is important.
Absolutely.
Very important.
Absolutely. I think it's important to also adapt and sort of become more open-minded in our learning styles, just as we do with our teaching styles, so that we can reach out in both directions into that synapse, in between the two neurons, me and you. And so I try to look into the eyes of the student and figure out, okay, this guy needs this, that person needs that, this is the learning model for each individual is going to be quite different. And at the same time, you go, all right, well, but Brian's a little casual compared to some of the other more regimented courses. And maybe for me, based on the way that I'm used to learning, it's a little annoying that I never know what Brian's going to do next. I don't know. There's no schedule. When are we going to go back to the classroom, and when are we going to done packing? Well, try to hold off on your annoyance and just accept the fact that there's going to be tidbits of information throughout this day that are going to be gold for me. Likewise, if you're loosey-goosey and up, and the uptight instructors or the tough instructors annoy you, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Make sure that you learn from them too, because they're going to, every one of them, the great teachers out there are going to say something where your eyebrows will come up and you'll tilt your head to the side like a dog who hears their name, and you'll go, oh.
Yes. Indeed.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Indeed. Well, those light bulb moments happen a lot more often than people think, as long as you're open to them. Which is the big thing. You got to be open to that learning, which also falls back to something you said at the beginning of the podcast, which is embrace going out and doing something you suck at, because to learn something new and to suck at something means to open yourself up to how that learning happens, in which case when you're teaching, you go, oh yeah, when I was learning this, and this is what was snagging me, and you can pass that on, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
So I always wrap up things by asking, you got two different groups of people. You got people that are just getting into the sport, and you got someone that's not really sure they're going to hang on anymore. What advice do you have to those groups of people, to the people just coming up and those people that are wondering if they should stick around?
Yeah. Well, I think the advice would be in some ways the same for both, in that if you can really connect with what you love about this. I mean, I understand there's stuff about it that you don't like, maybe you've been in the sport for too long and you're kind of burned out, or too many tandems or whatever, and these are all very common traps. You can notice those things and not fixate on them.
Right.
And likewise, you can notice the positive aspects and not fixate on them too, if you choose. So I urge people to spend more time talking about and almost bragging about how much you love your sport and your role in it. Those are two aspects of the same thing that are important, right? Who are you being when you're on the drop zone? What do you love about that? What do you love about the experience, the specific experience of gearing up, of getting in the plane or whatever? And I understand you're going to be like, well, I hate rushing. I hate that part. No, no, no. We're not talking about that right now. What
Right.
you're trying to nurture is your connection to what you love about it, the connection to the sensation of freedom,
Hmm.
of the freedom for creativity. Had this, the sky is so big, and how much you love just having the ability to just woohoo, I'm just going to track
Right.
over to that cloud. I'm just going to, pull high on this particular jump and play around for 20 minutes under canopy. Um, the those that list, those items are going to be what gets you through the harder times. Your
Sure.
connection to those things will help you to get up from sitting in the field next to somebody who's busted, waiting
Mm.
waiting for the helo to arrive to medevac them out. You know,
Mm.
when you got your hand on them and you're trying to soothe them, maybe somebody's holding a parachute up in the air to keep the sun off of the injured jumper, and you're like, oh, man,
Sure.
why the fuck do I do this? Why do I expose myself to something that's going to cause me and other people so much pain? What's the point? Well, that's why you do the homework, to remind
Sure.
yourself of why you
Oh
do,
yeah.
right? Because you're going to die anyway.
Sure.
You're going to get hurt. You're going to get sick. All kinds of relationships are going to come. They're going to go. But there is a relationship to your higher self that I want to remind people to sort of draw your attention back into that, and how skydiving has the potential to reconnect you with your own higher self.
Mm.
And
Yeah, very much so.
that's freaking awesome.
Oh yeah, well, and it's especially in a very pessimistic world that we live in, which seems to be getting more so every day. Having the ability to draw on something like that is amazing.
Mm.
I can't tell you how many times I feel nothing but lucky seeing friends all around the world that aren't involved in the sport, that are so down and so upset all the time, and my general mentality is, holy shit, I still get to do this stuff. And I mean,
Mhm.
don't get me wrong, I still look at all the negative stuff that's going around and go, oh, this really sucks. But my default is amazement,
Right.
and that's because of skydiving.
Yeah, yeah, and the mentality of the adventurer,
Oh yeah.
that is the priority, and not keeping up on the news or whatever, that stuff that just, it's always in the background, it's always there. Uh, and it doesn't mean we have to bury our heads in the sand, but it also doesn't mean we have to fixate so much on
Right.
the aspects that need to be changed. I don't think of it as negative. It's just the aspects that need to be changed. Um, we have to be. I mean, somebody's got to be the happy fuckers. You know what I mean?
It might as well be
Somebody,
us.
somebody has to be the happy-go-lucky people that are like, "What's up with that guy?" Every time I see him, he's like smiling. He makes eye contact. I see him at the store or whatever. What's his deal?
Yeah.
Why isn't he a miserable bastard like the rest of us? In the way that Richard Bach wrote of in the book Illusions. There was this river with these creatures living on the bottom of the river, and their entire lives they just held on to the bottom of the river with their legs just sort of dangling, and that was their existence, or is to be lowly and hang on in the river is this energy that we just fight against. And this one little dude is like, I think that if I let go, I'm going to float up and I'm going to be able to fly. I'm going to be free. And all the other creatures are like, dude, you're going to die, man. You do that, you're going to get tumbled and smashed at the rocks, and you're gonna be freaking chum. And he says, I can't take anymore. I can't do this anymore. And he finally let go. And sure enough, for the creatures around him, all they could see was him tumbling downstream. Like, see, told you, freaking idiot. Well, to the creatures downstream, though, he rose up above. And he's swimming around and he's free. And they're like, look at him, a Messiah come to save us all. He can fly, he's free. And he's like, no, dude, all you got to do is let go, man.
Yep. Yep. That's damn good advice too. Damn
Yep.
good advice. Unfortunately, it's advice that a lot of people aren't going to take.
Well, they need to read a little bit of Richard Bach, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Same guy that wrote that.
Well, it's nice to know that mentality is out there and it's so prevalent in the sport. I mean, one of the favorite things that I ever had people back when I was still jumping full time, my favorite reaction to WFOs when they found out that I jumped for a living was, you can make a living doing that? Because clearly that's just something people do for fun, and
Yep.
holy shit, you do this for fun and excitement, and you figured out how to pay your bills with it. And I always thought that was just the greatest damn thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now,
You have
please go ahead. Go
fear
ahead.
suppression is very helpful for that too, because when you live this life, you have to get really good at not freaking out about the fact that there's a bill coming and you don't know where the money's coming from.
Yeah, that's where the anxiety comes from. It's not the skydiving or any of that.
Potentially, right?
Yep.
But
Yep.
but you go, I know how to make money. I just have to take steps in that direction, and the universe will meet me halfway.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and of course the benefit to skydiving for those listening that are aiming towards a career in skydiving, once you hit a certain level in jumping and you're diverse enough in the sport, you've pretty much got a job as long as there is a sport. Somewhere in the world, there's a job for you. You might be living in a tent in the back of the drop zone, but you're paying bills and you're putting food in your stomach. So there is a means to an end in this sport as long as you don't care about the fancy cars and all that. And you could still get those as well. It just that never seems to be a big draw for people in skydiving anyway.
Yeah, it just becomes less interesting because you prioritize things that are spiritually meaningful, things that really enliven your life in a way that actually does something in your soul. Yeah. That it does shift you out of darkness into light, or whatever you want to call that.
Well, it's always funny when you see the Facebook posts that come up saying, you don't get anything from material this and material that, and people that are chasing after these don't. And my first thought whenever I see posts like that is, well, yeah, no shit.
Well, I mean, it's very true. And of course, 0P material, though.
Right.
I'm a materialist.
Oh, yeah.
The question is, what does that material give you in terms of experiences? And so that reminds me of something Bob Moore, my old teammate, always used to say: get attached to experiences and not objects.
Yes.
So it's about the attachment, and the experiences. Yes, do require certain objects. My climbing shoes, right, definitely offer me a lot of freedom. My headlamp offers me a lot of freedom, but it's not that specific headlamp. It's a headlamp in general.
Yeah. Well, and it's the experiences that should drive people, and hopefully more and more people keep coming around to something like that.
Yep.
So once again, what's the website that they're going to find you?
AdventureWisdom.com is the primary one. There's also my older website, Big Air Sports with a Z.com. That's still up. There's a lot of articles that are only on that website. And that one's older, non-adaptive web format, but it's a lot of good stuff there. And of course that's the one that is dedicated to the parachutes. That
cool.
I make.
And then of course there's the YouTube channel under Brian Germain that's got a lot of the free stuff as well as links to paid stuff. Yes.
300 and some odd videos. I can't remember.
Oh shit.
Yeah. And I've taken a lot of them down.
Been a busy man.
Yeah. So I'm just old. Just been doing it all the time. That's all it is.
Fair enough.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in there that's going to help you. Just like, how do I change the altitude that my Cypress activates?
Right.
There's a little video in there and showing you how to do that. Just trying to make the lives of skydivers better in the ways that I can when I have the time. Just make another video.
Awesome, man. Well, you've been doing it for a very, very long time, and I know how busy you are, so I can't tell you how much I appreciate the fact that you sat down to talk with me for a little while, and hopefully the videos keep coming, as well as the new canopies and all the innovation.
Absolutely. And just I do rely on people for ideas. So, if you have a thought or a question or something, send it in.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for taking the time, man. Blue skies.
All right. Happy landings. Okay, I think we're in business. Right on. Cool. So, welcome to Casual Chat Live. I am Brian Germain, and I have one of the best guests. I'm so